Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Lucibello and I am a fourth year PhD candidate from the University of Toronto. Before I get started, I just want to thank my collaborators on this project. Adolescence is a critical period for the promotion of physical activity behavior, as declines in physical activity are consistently noted in this age group. Adolescents who engage in low physical activity continue to do so in adulthood, limiting their involvement in a behavior with ample physical, psychological, and interpersonal benefits. Therefore, mitigating the maladaptive changes in physical activity that occur during adolescence could have important implications for short and long-term well-being, health, and engagement in health behaviors. Importantly, theoretical tenets and empirical evidence support that body image may be an important construct related to engagement in physical activity. And so, body-related self-conscious emotions, an affective domain of body image, are complex emotions that help humans to navigate social situations by motivating moral behaviors and socially desirable behaviors or characteristics. This can include having a physically attractive appearance or high physical fitness. And different emotions serve different purposes. So, the negative body-related emotion of shame is elicited in response to a perceived failure for one's actual appearance to live up to an idealized self-representation of appearance, whereas embarrassment occurs in response to more trivial public transgressions like tripping and falling or accidentally exposing certain parts of the body. And these negative emotions motivate avoidance from situations where one may be vulnerable to experiencing them, like the physique salient and comparative physical activity environment. Consistent with this notion, in the literature we see that body-related shame and embarrassment have been associated with lower levels of physical activity and poorer sport experiences. In contrast, authentic pride is a positively balanced emotion elicited when there is a perceived congruence between one's actual self-appearance and their idealized self-representation of appearance. Pride is thought to reinforce achievement and regular engagement in goal-oriented tasks. Unsurprisingly, then, body-related authentic pride has been associated with higher levels of physical activity and more positive sport experiences. However, the evidence to date is predominantly cross-sectional and with a strong focus on adults. Given the importance of mitigating physical activity declines in adolescence, it is imperative to investigate the longitudinal associations between body image and physical activity in this age group. And therefore, the purpose of the present study was to examine the role of body-related self-conscious emotions in predicting physical activity behavior in adolescents over time. And so, data from this study were collected for the monitoring activities of teenagers to comprehend their habits, or MATCH study, a prospective cohort study that aims to understand the determinants of sustained or disengaged physical activity within Canadian adolescents. Data from this particular subsample come from cycles 14 and 20, which occurred approximately 2 years apart. And at baseline and 2 years later, participants completed self-report measures. Consistent with previous research that supports the use of single items to assess emotions, single items were drawn from the Body and Appearance Self-Conscious Emotion Scale and Body Appearance and Fitness Embarrassment Scale to assess feelings of body-related shame, embarrassment, and authentic pride. A validated 2-item measure of physical activity had participants self-report the number of days they engaged in at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity. With respect to statistical analysis, descriptive statistics and correlations were first calculated, and for the main analysis, a path model explored the longitudinal associations among body-related emotions and MBPA, while including the covariates of body mass index and gender. Model fit was assessed using the comparative fit index and the standardized room mean square residual. With respect to the descriptive statistics, our final sample was comprised of 310 adolescents, relatively split between boys and girls, who were an average of 14.62 years old at baseline. And with respect to associations, at baseline, the correlations between self-conscious emotions and MVPA were consistent with previous research, such that higher levels of body shame and embarrassment were associated with lower MVPA, whereas higher body-related authentic pride was associated with higher MVPA. 2 years later, the associations, while in the expected directions, were not statistically significant. When examining the PATH model, adequate model fit indicators were observed. Importantly, the model that I'm showing here is only showing the statistically significant associations. So despite the associations noted among the self-conscious emotions and MVPA at time 1 here in blue, only feelings of body-related embarrassment at time 1 were predictive of lower levels of physical activity 2 years later. It is also important to note that at age 16, the cross-sectional associations differed, such that only body-related pride was positively correlated with MVPA. And so these findings provide novel insight into the associations among body-related emotions and MVPA over time in adolescence. Body-related embarrassment, but not shame or authentic pride, predicted MVPA 2 years later. This suggests that body embarrassment may be particularly important to target in order to promote physical activity behavior in adolescents. Importantly, emerging adults have qualitatively reported that the physical activity environment is one of the most common for eliciting feelings of body-related embarrassment. And this suggests that in order to foster physical activity, more systemic changes that mitigate the contextual influences of the physical activity environment should be concurrently investigated alongside individual level interventions. Additionally, the association between pride and MVPA at time 2 in our findings suggests a more nuanced understanding regarding the particular age to target respective emotions. Buffering body-related embarrassment earlier in adolescence may need to be followed up with promoting body pride as they continue to age in order to foster sustained physical activity engagement in adolescence. This should also be explored in future research. Limitations of the current study include an inability to discriminate between differing exercise types, intensities, or contexts based on the current MVPA measure, as well as the focus on body-related emotions contextualized to the body's appearance, despite body image literature highlighting that self-conscious emotions can also be contextualized to the body's function. These broader variables should be included in future research. Despite these limitations, the present study advances our understanding of the temporal associations between self-conscious emotions and physical activity behavior, ultimately supporting the importance of body image as a malleable construct that could be targeted to promote physical activity behavior in adolescents. Thank you all so much for listening to my presentation.